share. But for now, it's just to, for me to be able to send an effective recap out to the community. So welcome, everybody. I'm glad we're back on again. So this is our usual community advisory group call. We've been holding them weekly. I think you all remember since May. We've decided to go every other week at this point. And then just for everybody who didn't hear it, on the 25th of September, when we have CHP on the call, I think we're going to open it up to a broader community meeting about security. And I think that'll give us about a month to have the conversations that Steve and Robert are going to lead. So just as a recap, we'll get an update from U.S. Army Corps, as we always do. Colonel Palazzini unceremoniously has left us, so hopefully we can get him back and give him the same kind of send-off that we gave to Colonel Swenson. But I think he was called away kind of suddenly, so he left. We have Colonel Weart here. So thank you. We'll get an update from them. We'll get an update from, I believe, Captain Gabaldan, yes, is here. And then we will talk about what we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, again, with Robert and Steve leading the conversation. But basically, as you all know, LAPD's contracts with their 3 private security agencies will not be renewed past what I understand to be September 6th. And while I don't think all hell will break loose on September 7th, I do think that we have to have a community plan in place. So what we've been trying to do is to speak to those 3 security providers and understand what they've been doing, what they've been seeing out there. And then to also talk to the security providers that have traditionally worked in the neighborhoods across Pacific Palisades and understand what they've been doing and what they expect to see as things evolve, as this recovery evolves. And so Robert and Steve have been doing that to try to emerge with what seems like a sensible plan that we can take to the community and potentially implement in the months ahead. Of course, realizing that everything will change, none of us know what lies ahead, and that we all have to be nimble, and that includes LAPD and your support. So with that, I will, if you guys don't mind, have a couple of the updates, and then we'll go to the substance. So U.S. Army Corps, welcome, and thank you for the work that you do. I know you cleared your last right of entry lot on, I want to say Tuesday. I think you have a couple of remediated lots, but welcome.
Hey, Miriam, this is Lieutenant Colonel Ward. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Great to see you.
Okay, great. Yep, so as mentioned, we held a bit of an event here on Tuesday at the Tremonto property. That property will be finished and complete with a final sign-off this weekend. And the last remaining project we have here from a debris removal aspect is 16601 Marquez, which is the multi-unit here in the Palisades. That should be done mid next week with the target date of September 4th. And then after that, really the final work we have here, it's not debris removal related, but restoration related, is restoring the Will Rogers State Park that we used for the temporary debris staging and reduction site, handing that back over to the state parks system on or about 12 September is the goal there. And that formally completes our mission in the Palisades.
That's incredible. What's your timeline for that?
The mission complete or the Will Rogers State Park, ma'am? The
Will Rogers State Park thing.
So the goal is to be done by 12 September and to hand it back over to the state park system, assuming both parties agree to the scope of work that are completed. We're currently restoring it right now, primarily the roads and the parking space around the polo field.
Okay, so mid-September. And when you say restore, you mean, so obviously all of your equipment will go.
Yep.
You've been using the road that leads into it. That was always a dirt road. It'll remain a dirt road?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially our contract with the state park is to bring it to we call pre-TDSR conditions. So basically we return it back as we found it.
Okay, so not improved in any way. And then have you guys been using the tiny little road that leads out of it the other direction? Like, have you been making it a loop?
Yeah, it's a loop around. So basically the trucks go into the right to the parking lot and then loop around.
Go back to the left. Okay.
Any route or any road that was damaged from our use has got to be repaired. So it's either sealed or if it's asphalt, we reseal it. If it was loose or base material, then we replace it and grade it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. I was wondering if that little road that leads back down to PCH is something you're going to be working on, but it sounds like you were just making a loop in and out the same Will Rogers Road. Okay, so
Yeah, that's
mid-September.
right.
Thank you very much. Please let us know because we did give a warm send off to Colonel Swenson. We'd love to do the same for you guys. And if Colonel Palazzini is going to come back, we'd love to also just give our thanks. You guys have been great. The community, it is not lost on the community how well you did this work and how quickly you did it without disturbing the people who live here. I mean, quality of life was not touched in any negative way by you guys. So I think we'd like to let
Yes,
you know
ma'am.
we're grateful.
I would like to, I guess, expand upon that last comment. So Colonel Palazzini is going to stay in Alaska. He's not coming back. I should be leaving the first or second week of September, and at that point, we're transferring the rest of the mission to back over to the local LA district. So the Los Angeles district of the Corps of Engineers, headquartered in downtown with Colonel Baker.
Okay. Well, I wonder if you'll give us an introduction to, I'll follow up with you, but an introduction to Colonel Baker so we know who to thank when the mission's over.
Okay, thanks, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that update. Okay, Captain Gabaldon, want to give us an LAPD update and then we'll go into the conversation that we have set up.
Sure, no problem. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, and welcome back. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too. I'm getting a little echo in here, but just bear with me. I've been on vacation for 4 weeks, so I've been back. Luckily, haven't heard anything negative about the Palisades, so everything seems to be running pretty smoothly. For the month of August so far, we've only had 6 thefts and 2 GTAs, so that's probably fueling why they're getting rid of some of the private security services, because the crime numbers just don't match up for the amount of money they're paying. But like we talked about before, Marianne, when they get into the construction and the materials and stuff get there, that's probably when we're going to see more of a crime spike than what we have now, where it's mostly just demolition and getting stuff ready for the construction. So we can always ratchet it back up, and go back to them and say, hey, these crime numbers are increasing now. We need to be implementing some more private security, or like I say, you have to get together with the community members and figure out if that's something they want to supplement in there. We still have the same footprint. Private security is 2 and 10 on A Watch and B Watch. CHP is 2 and 12, A Watch and B Watch. We haven't really heard from them how much longer they're going to be there. They might be indefinite. So as long as they're there, we're going to keep using them. And we still have our same footprint of 1 and 10 on A Watch and B Watch. And we're going to continue for the foreseeable future with that. I have not heard anything that they're going to decrease that footprint. I spoke to Chief Woodyard last night, and he's going on vacation, but he gave no indication that that's going to be changing. So that's where we're at right now. I'll stay on if there's any questions later, and I'll see if I can fix my microphone so I'm not echoing.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So we also saw Chief Woodyard. He stopped by the headquarters or the stop-in station on Wednesday. He did say that LAPD formation would stay the same. So 5, that means the A car is here and then 5 patrols 24/7, 2 shifts.
Well, it's the 1A car and then 4 other cars, 1 per sector. That's crime suppression.
Okay, and that's two shifts a day. So 24/7, 2 shifts a day, 4 cars, 4 sections, and the A car.
Yeah, there is a little gap in timeline. I think it's between about 3:30 in the morning and 5:30 in the morning at transition.
Oh. Okay.
But the A car is there 24/7.
Okay. A car is here 24/7. Okay, and as we discussed yesterday, Captain Gabaldon, since CHP does not seem to be leaving, and I did have a conversation, so for everybody who wasn't on the call first in the beginning, I did have a conversation with Colonel Geller of CHP. I guess he's CHP command for the deployment they have in the Palisades. He said they were not planning on leaving. He had not heard anything about reducing their footprint. I did talk to him about the fact that we've been told that they're a force multiplier for LAPD, so we expect to see them. We as a community probably expect to see them up in the streets, but where we see them most, it tends to be on PCH with traffic stops, which are getting exhausting. I asked him to come to the community and talk about that. He said he'd be here on the 25th of September. So everybody, please mark your calendars. 25th of September, we'll have a broader meeting with CHP. And I certainly, Captain Gabaldon, hope they won't leave, because to the extent that they're a force multiplier for you, I think it's great that they're here. But if you can have a conversation with Colonel Geller and have them be more of a safety force multiplier for you rather than a traffic enforcement, I think the community would really appreciate it. I, at this point, know 0 Palisadian families who haven't been ticketed recently, and it's just not very convenient. So regarding LAPD, Chief Woodyard, who, and I had the pleasure of seeing both you and him last night, does say that for now, there's no change in the LAPD formation, but he doesn't say that that will indefinitely be the case. So Captain Gabaldon, are you the one that's going to sort of keep an eye on statistics and crime reports and just kind of, make sure that LAPD is nimble enough that if you change your formation, so, you release those private contracts on the 6th of September, that's fine, assuming nothing changes. If LAPD starts to think about pulling back actual LAPD resources, will you come back to us or advocate in some way for us?
Yeah, no, I'll definitely advocate, and I'll keep you updated, because as soon as they make some decision, then they're gonna tell me. We'll be monitoring the crime. I'll get on these security calls every other week, give you guys an update, and let you know how our footprint's looking. But yeah, I'll keep you in the loop, and I'll talk to CHP too. All I can do is kind of advise them what the community is saying. They don't dictate what we do, and we really don't dictate what they do. But we can make that issue, bring it up to them and let them know that, hey, we've been receiving some feedback that some of the Palisades people have been targeted for traffic enforcement. So we'll take it from there. I can't say that I spoke to the Malibu sheriffs, and they're reducing their law enforcement footprint by about a half. Now, they didn't have as many people as we did, but they're going to be eventually phasing it out here over the next month or 30 days. So, because they're not having the correct numbers either over there.
So you mean they had bolstered their sheriff presence, which always
Yes.
was there, and they're just redacting it to what it was before?
Yes.
Okay. Captain Gabaldon, if we lose LAPD resources and then the situation changes and you recognize that we need them back, how hard is it to get them back?
From the Bureau, it's not that difficult. I would just go to Chief Woodyard and say, hey, we're having a big crime spike. We need resources. And then he could send the units back, one from each division, and we can keep our same footprint. It might be a little more difficult with the private security, getting them back, because that's contracts and that has to be negotiated. As far as getting the CHP back, once they're gone, I don't think we're going to see them again. So we got to try to hold on to them as long as we can, because it's a force multiplier.
Okay, so in order not to be slow and reactive, I think we have to stay one step ahead, right?
Yes.
Okay, last question for me, and then I want the community to talk about some of the things you brought up, and one of them is just, how it's going with CHP out there. If you're going to talk to them, I just want you to have that community feedback. My last question for you is, the stop-in station at the moment is just the stop-in station. So literally, the CHP hangs out, but LAPD literally stops in, does their thing, and they leave again. If we want you guys to stick around and we want you to be able to do the work that you have to do while you're up here instead of driving down to a station, does it make sense for us to ask you to pull in your LAPD landline and put in a computer or some sort of workstation for you guys, so that once things do pick up and there, potentially is a crime and you have to file a report, that you don't actually have to leave the Palisades?
I mean, it does. That's a whole different, there's a difference between a stop-in station and an actual substation. A substation has the landline, it has access to the computers. And that's a big transition, because a lot of people want substations in their area. The reason why we have this one here is because it's a quote stop-in station. So from a police officer aspect, they would love to have access to that, so they wouldn't have to drive back. But it's a little more political. It has to be something that gets approved from above. I don't know if you remember when we discussed it with Chief Choi, and he said, we're not going to make it a substation, we're going to make it a stop-in station. So, but down the road, I would like to see it go to that, because I think it's a great idea and it saves time.
So as you might know, it came up last night with one of the commissioners. He seemed to think it was a good idea. Chief Woodyard was there. And so I wanted to ask you, if it's something you want us to pursue, you know, if we have a commissioner on our side, it might be something to pursue. Senior lead officer, you're also on the call. If that's a positive thing, I'm willing to walk in that direction.
What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea to put an actual substation up there. Obviously, the main reason why we didn't have it before is just lack of resources to have officers be able to stay up there. Just because the ACAR previously would get bounced around with radio calls. So
Right.
even though we try to keep them in the Palisades, they would get pulled to the Westwood area or down Pico Robertson area because just that day or the division just busy with radio calls. So we have to, that's our department is priority is calls for service to help as many people as we can. So a substation would be good, but logistically, like Captain said, to put in our computer, it's not just like a regular laptop computer. We have to be able to access our RMS system, and we have our what call our LANs software. So they typically, from what I've been told, is they won't do that on outside satellite buildings. It has to be like a city building with like a secure line. So logistically, I'm sure it's possible, but that just costs money for the city side. That's why they haven't done it.
Okay, got it. So it's difficult, but it's favorable. And so if we can get it done, it's a good thing. It won't be quick, but maybe valuable, especially as we go forward. If eventually there's no CHP, there's no private security, I definitely want you guys to feel at home. So we'll go there. All right.
No, I think that's a great idea, Marianne.
Great. Thank you. Okay, every community members on the call, knowing that Captain Gabaldan is going to be talking to CHP Lieutenant, any feedback you want to give or any questions for these guys? Court is on the call. Yeah, Court Wagner is not on the call. If he were, he would say, please tell them to stop pulling us over. So please tell them to stop pulling us over.
I'll speak to that because after you left the meeting on was it just Tuesday or Wednesday with yesterday. So we did speak to the gentleman from CHPD, the officer, and we brought up the concern that people who are residents are getting pulled over and getting ticketed. And his response was, that's the only way we work. If we're out there trying to protect the neighborhood, people who are living in the neighborhood are going to get caught in that net as well. And if they weren't pulling those people over, we wouldn't be pulling over other people who we actually want to be pulled over. So he asked us to try to get that message out to the community. And so I'm putting that feedback here in this call.
That's what the colonel says to me too, Robert. And in the beginning, Combies, I see your hand. In the beginning, it made some sense. It does not anymore. Honestly, Captain Gabaldan, you're welcome to tell them I think this. But honestly, I think CHP has discovered a new trove of income. You know, I think this was a strip of LA that they didn't really focus on. It was part of LAPD and they weren't here. And now they realize they've got people up and down PCH speeding all day, every day, and they pay their tickets. So hopefully that is not the case, but please impress upon them that this is a community still rebounding from trauma. And yes, their eyes and ears are helpful if it's a force multiplier for you, LAPD. They are not helpful if it's traffic stops. So please, Combies.
No, I'll pass it on. You know, there's a difference between, actually citing someone and warning someone. And then, if they are Palisades residents and they're trying to get up to their house. Now, the message I have sent is, we're not looking to target the people that live there unless it's something egregious. Give them a warning, let them know that we're out there. Try to abide by the rules. If you get someone that it's not getting the message and he keeps doing the same violations, then go ahead and cite. But, you guys have been through a lot. So we're not out there looking to, pad the city's coffers with citation money. CHP, like they train statewide, so they have a different mentality than we do. They look for these traffic violations on the highway, and they're very less accommodated as far as warnings. I mean, we've written more warnings here at West LA than we have citations, so that's a little different mindset. But all I can do, like I said, is bring up your concerns and hopefully maybe soften them up a little bit. So at least for the residents' part,
yeah,
they can do the same thing, targeting the cars, through the traffic stops or violations. It's just the citing part, maybe they can, cut a few breaks here and there. I think that would be better.
That would be great. Combies.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Comby's had his hand up, but when he comes back, we can call on him. Okay,
Sorry, I was on mute and I forgot to unmute it.
no
I
worries.
was gonna say, just to add, hiding in the Calvary parking lot to pull people over, the radar guns. I'm just saying, like, they're here to protect. I get it, but don't hide and try to catch us coming down the hill. Like, don't, fine if we're speeding in front of you, great, pull us over, but don't hide. Don't do that. Be here to protect. Don't be here to,
Harass.
make it difficult for us to live here.
Yeah, and it's, you're always walking a fine line too. I mean, you start criticizing about their traffic enforcement. It might be something where they say, okay, well, we're just going to pull out entirely then. I've seen that happen too. So it's a fine line we got to walk, try not to speed, try to abide by the traffic laws the best you can. And then we'll try to work it from our end as far as talking to them like, hey, if they have a Palisades ID or they are a resident, we're our policies, we're looking to warn. And so if we could kind of be on the same page since we're working together, I think it would work out better. You don't want to be getting pulled over by LAPD and getting a warning and then get pulled over by CHP and then you get like cited for 5 different things, So we kind of want to be, working together in tandem and kind of with the same mission. So I've been gone for a month and that's kind of how I had communicated to the CHP beforehand. I don't know if something's changed. Like it sounds like they're being a little bit more stricter with enforcement. So let me talk to them and maybe something happened. Maybe there was an accident or maybe they're getting citizen complaints about people speeding or committing traffic violations out there. So it goes both ways, So let me touch base with them. And then when we have our next security meeting, I can get back and give you some feedback of where they're at.
Okay, that sounds like the perfect narrative. Thank you. All right.
Sorry, I was going to jump in real quick. So I have been getting some emails from some community members about people driving erratically in the neighborhood. So, yeah, it's kind of a 50-50 with the CHP and with us as well, just because I see some of the messaging from community members about people driving erratic, running stop signs, speeding, especially down Palisades Drive. So it's kind of, we'll say that 50-50 wobbler where yeah, we're gonna do the warning, but at the same time, it's when we get so many complaints, we know it's a problem. And that's historically, Palisades Drive has historically been a problem location. Our West Traffic Unit or our Community Traffic Safety Unit, that was one of their radars that they've been sitting on because of so many complaints from the community. So like Captain Gabaldon said, is like we'll relay that message to CHP, but it's also the community needs to maybe slow it down and maybe just be a little bit more aware what they're doing when they're driving.
Makes sense. Thank you, Brian. People are repopulating and largely in the Highlands. So I'm sure you see a lot more activity in the Highlands because that's where population is. And I'm sure that all makes sense. But still, I agree with Combies. If you're going to, lurk in the shadows and kind of jump out and give people violations, just maybe have them think it over. Okay, we're good. Steve and Robert, take it away. You have, as we said in the beginning, you've been talking to the security partners of LAPD, which apparently will no longer be renewed. Their contracts won't be renewed. You've been learning what they've been doing. You've also talked to some of the classic security providers that have been in the Palisades for generations or for years. You've been learning what they potentially can offer looking ahead. And I think you're bringing this synergy to the table. So take it away.
Thank you. Let's Steve, you jump in and I'll follow.
Thank
I'll
you.
follow on this one.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Miriam, and all of you guys, especially our partners in the LAPD, for everything you guys have done throughout this whole process. So I'm just going to give a quick recap of what Robert and I have been doing. So we've met with all there's 3 different vendors that have contracted with the LAPD. There's Allied Security, there's Absolute Security, and GSG. At Allied, we met with Lisa Leja, who's the Business Development Manager, Andy Coleman, who's a VP of Sales, and Brandon Butler, who's the Director of Sales and Strategic Solutions. At Absolute, I met with the Chief Operating Officer, David Reynoso. And with GSG, we met with Corey English and who is the Chief Operations Officer, and Justin Dizon, the Operational Support Specialist. First of all, just things that we've heard from these security companies, and also, echoing a little bit about what Robert said with our conversations that we had at the end of the other meeting, was that how they're operating within the community, and I'll circle back to that in a little bit. So we've got we have to submit a specific what they call a information request to the city to get specific budgetary numbers that they're being paid. But we have estimates we're working off of. The Palisades community's been broken into 5 zones for patrol, as I understand it. And I'm not sharing this information with anyone outside this group, but as I know it and understand it, is the Huntington is Area 1, the Alphabets are Area 2, Area 3 is from Temescal going westward and north up to Sunset Mesa, Area 4 is Upper Marquez, and the Lower Marquez, and 5 would be the Highlands. So it's basically those 5 areas. It doesn't appear, unless I'm mistaken, and Officer Upson can step in and correct me if I'm incorrect, that we're really patrolling what I would consider Rustic Canyon or the Riviera in any sort of real way. And it looks like a little bit of Area 2 might also be encompassing the Will Rogers State Park area, but you would have to correct me either way. It's hard for me to tell on the map. I've also toured the entire Palisades with David Reynoso. We spent 4 hours driving around every neighborhood so that he could familiarize himself as well as I could understand how the security concerns would be spread out throughout the community. Miriam, do you want to jump in, or you're applauding me? Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
4 hours, but that deserves applause. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll take any kudos I can at this point. In our tour, I like to call it Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. I saw a number of security company vehicles within the community. I saw IPS, ADT, Gates/Palisades Patrol, Securitas, Black Knight, NASTEC, SSA, ACS, and I did not see Apollo, but I've heard that they're in existence here. Apparently, I don't know about them. So as we understand the costs as they're breaking down right now, and again, an official public records request will have to go into the city to get specific numbers. There's about 16 cars per shift. There's 3 different shifts. I believe Absolute is the graveyard, the night shift. I think GSG is the first morning shift, and Allied is the late afternoon shift. 16 cars per shift. We're doing sort of our own estimate of cost, which is about $107,000 a week, plus a supervisor. That could be one way. Again, this is an estimate, not knowing the specific numbers, which could come out to $400,000 to $500,000 a month. So we know this is not a small number. So that I think that in terms of how this would work would be a couple of different ways. And so let me just kind of recap some of the discussions that were had and where this all led. Speaking to all 3 companies and all 3 of the leadership groups, they all, found out more or less, and they were happy about it, but they got relatively short notice for the Palisades deployment. So that led to sort of a ramp up of manpower as they either had to make arrangements to reshift their assets from other parts of their umbrella, either potentially buying more vehicles or hiring more guards to take over and be in these responsibilities. When the deployment ended, they were caught off guard a little bit, and I'm just voicing that and throwing that out there because they were all under the understanding that they would have a contract through December. So I'm just saying that I'm just sharing this internally. That being said, I don't know whether we have, and it doesn't feel like we have the funding at this point to fund a program of this scale. And in terms of the 16, 10, 5, or 2 card, whatever number we come up with. And moving forward, and I'm just going to throw this out there. I'd love us, Miriam, if there's a way to discuss this with the city and with our team here, potentially a ramping down period, which would give us a little bit more time since they ramped up to these numbers. Maybe we can ramp back down, which would buy us a little bit more time past September 6th to sort this out and come up with a solution that'll work for everybody.
Yeah.
As we get these real numbers, because do we really need of these 5 areas, do we need 16 cars? Can we, can we cut the number in half for a
Right.
week, or, some sort of a progression of ramping down, which would extend the security a little bit longer, keeping the costs in line if we did at the full deployment now cut it at the September 6th, and then have a little bit more time to sort this out from an internal standpoint.
So Steve,
Then,
I happen to think that that makes sense. I think Robert sort of shared that idea yesterday, and I didn't know. I did know that we had sort of broken the news to some of these private agencies about their contracts. I didn't know that they expected it through December. And I mean, I have to say, knowing that some of them went out and bought a fleet of cars just to service this contract, maybe it would be sort of fair to be able to.
I'm not saying they bought a fleet, but I know that they had to acquire some new assets and spend some money to
One of them
ramp
told us
up.
on one of the cars. So we have Matt Talley on the call. I don't want to cut you off. I want you to go on, but before we lose anybody, we've got Matt Talley from ACOM on the call, and we still have Captain Gabalden. We do.
Okay.
So Captain, first of all, maybe you can take that idea to the chief, maybe a ramp down instead of a full end, just to give us a little time to get around our own strategy. And then Matt, if you want to jump into this, interface with the city, we can do it, but you can certainly assist.
Yeah, just real quick, Miriam. I mean, all I could do is make that suggestion to them. I mean, they're the ones negotiating the contract way above my head. So all I can really do is, when I'm sitting in those meetings, is bring up your guys' concerns. To me, that sounds like a perfectly reasonable, ask. Like, you never want to just cut something completely out. Like, we would never take all 10 officers out, or eight of our officers out, and just leave one car. We would slowly take one unit out and then see how it goes, and take another unit out, and be based on the crime trends and patterns. But we're dealing with high dollar. They're dealing with high dollar contracts, and this is something I haven't seen them do. The city negotiate private security for an area before. So in a budget crunch, I'm just telling you some of the stuff that I've heard. They're going to try to save money wherever they can first, and that's where they're going to cut it out there. All I can do is when we do have that discussion, or when it is discussed, I'll bring up your guys' concerns about, we would much rather see a phase out rather than just a complete, gutting of the private security, and then we're down to CHP and us.
Okay, excellent. Steve.
Okay, and continuing, and actually the segue and mentioning of Matt is fantastic, because I think studying this, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of reading this document as I'm talking. One of the things that really became evident as I drove around the Palisades is the number of cars that are not from the neighborhood that are there. Just for, like, when I went through one job site, I think I videoed and counted over 100 cars at like 3 job sites. And as any sort of security plan that we implement should probably be done in lockstep with AECOM's plan in terms of the reconstruction of the community, because it's going to be about understanding which vehicles are coming in, controlling the access, vehicles that are there at night that aren't supposed to be, and somehow, there are dumpsters and storage containers on all these streets, which are creating safety and evacuation issues. I mean, there's so many layers to this as I drove through that, we're all having to learn things that we didn't really have on our radar 8 months ago. And I would defer to people like experts like Matt and these companies and the LAPD for understanding the best way to proceed and best practices. So I'll just continue with this with my notes, and then I'll hand it back over to Robert. We also know that that any model of security that we come up with moving forward, and however we fund it, and if we come up with some sort of a private thing, there are cities within California. Now, some of their private cities, and I know that dealing with a city entity like Los Angeles is going to create some other political issues, as our officer just mentioned. But potentially anything that we do needs to be in lockstep in partnership with the city entities. Like, if we hire a private entity and we're sharing tech, i.e. drones, i.e. flock cameras, or whatever they are, there has to be a real synergy between the two. Otherwise that information doesn't go. If there's not a flow of information between the multiple entities involved, then it's not an efficient use of funds, and the security itself will ultimately suffer. And we've heard, like Robert and I've heard that the flock cameras are not there, and then I've also heard that they are there. So I'm not sure where they are, and I also am not certain who's monitoring them and how, if they're being used or how they're being used. So, but I don't want to make calls directly to Flock or reach out to them without some sort of information from, I think Jessica Rogers, like originally, I remember way back when that she was one of the ones on one of the calls that mentioned that they were being donated. Again, I don't know where that ended up, but I'd love to know how they're being utilized and if they're there or not and how they're being monitored. And ultimately what the cost would be. I have some general ideas of what they are, but that would be that.
Okay.
Um,
Should we break
that's
into
a
one for a
that's
second?
that's about it. That's about it, Marianne.
Oh, okay. We'll come back to you to pull it all together. But on the flock cameras, first of all, I see Arus has her hand up, course coming in. And Captain Gabalden, let's see if you're still here. Is okay. So at some point, Captain Gabalden, LAPD told us that there were 50 operational cameras. That was before the conversation about LTV or whatever that company was that wanted to donate. So yes, Steve, Jessica Sue and I talked to that company that wanted to donate. We never got there. They never ended up doing the donating. Jessica drove them around and there was some conversation about where to put them, but it never quite closed. At the same time, we did have 50 operational cameras that LAPD had launched, but then we heard that those were no longer going to be optional. So LAPD, if we can get an update on those cameras, I think that'd be great.
So, yeah, I haven't checked since I got back from vacation on Monday. When I left prior to my vacation, we did still have those same amount of cameras. Detectives have access to them. They can log in. Officers have access to them. They can log in. But I don't know if Brian, have you heard anything on that? Anything changed with that as far as you know? Because I checked my emails. I didn't see anything about them not being operational. But if Brian doesn't know, let me follow up on that and I'll make sure I have an update up for that for the next meeting. I know there was a contract. They were supposed to be there, I believe, till the end of the year. I haven't received any notification that they took them out. So I'm assuming that they're still there and we still have access to them, but I'll follow up on that.
Brian, anything new on those? Because we did hear on one of these calls that maybe they were no longer operational. And Arus has her hand up. So Brian, tell us what you know, and then Arus.
Yeah, so from like Captain said, the contract for the LPR cameras that our department put in, it was supposed to go till the end of this year. So they haven't sent any information that they've been removed. But like the captain said, the officers have been using Flock, especially for the whole division. And our detectives use it constantly to track vehicles that they're believe are involved in certain crimes for the area. So it is definitely beneficial for sure.
Okay, and if those 50 cameras that are stationed around the Palisades are beneficial to you guys, if information that is grabbed by those cameras ends up being actionable for West LA, do you guys hear about it? I mean, do you have a handle on whether or not it's been helpful in the Palisades?
Well, I know we had an incident where we had a white Dodge Charger that was going around and was stealing equipment off construction trucks. And we were able to monitor that car through Flock and get a plate. And we followed it back to where it was, and we stuck a tracker on it. And the next time it came into the location, we were able to arrest those individuals. So we have used it. I know the officers log in, the ones that know how to use it log in. It's mostly West LA because a lot of the other divisions that come in here on loan don't have flock cameras in their area, and they're not well versed on how they use them. But I know the patrol cars use them. Detectives use them for follow-up, so we are using them. The only thing we don't have is when we did have the command post on the beach, you had people monitoring them the entire time while they were there. And until we get something of a real-time crime analysis center where we'll have people in there, they can monitor them, I don't want to say 24/7, but a good portion of the time. Then that's one aspect that we did lose of it, is because when we did have the command post, there's people stationed inside the command post that were monitoring the entire time,
Interesting.
24/7 there. So we're using it more now as follow-up and crimes in progress for the officers that are logged into it, but we just don't have the personnel that we have to monitor them 24/7 like we did before.
Okay, Arus, then Robert, but it sounds like these are productive, and so I think Steve's going to start talking about maybe they shouldn't be phased out after the end of the year. Also, if the if the stop-in station turns into a little bit of a substation, could you have that? Could you have that sort of feature here? If there were a landline, like we were talking about in the beginning of the meeting, and somehow these cameras remained operable, could you have that monitoring here?
I mean, if you had access to them and someone went in there, they could monitor them, but someone has to be physically there to, to monitor and look at the screen and the cameras
Okay.
and follow up on the hits that they get and then, dispatch that information out. That's what they were doing beforehand was we had, the larger crime suppression platoons. You had someone monitoring inside the command post. They get a hit that the car just came through that has a warrant, or this person has wanted for a burglary. This car was involved in a burglary or a theft. They had someone there with a radio they could dispatch to those officers that were out there, and then they could follow up and look for that vehicle or located it and do an investigative stop based on
Right,
it.
and that was staffed by LAPD. That monitor was an LAPD.
Yes, so the times I was at the command post, they had a screen on there, and Brian can talk. He was in there a lot more than me, but they all had access to it, and you could see the flock hits that were up there. And some, might have been something that it wasn't worth following up on, but there were other stuff that warrants, like I said, or
Okay.
someone that was maybe
So-
wanted that they could dispatch that information. And that's kind of how a real-time crime center works, with the flock cameras. You get a stolen car that comes into your area, they get a hit on the flock camera. You have someone that's in this real-time crime center that sees the hit. They get out on the broadcast, hey, we have a stolen vehicle, and they give a description where it's at, and then they're monitoring it through the flock cameras as it goes. They dispatch hopefully a drone by that time, or the officers, and then they make a traffic stop, or worst case scenario, they go in pursuit of a possible suspect.
And
That's how it's supposed to work.
And you bring up drone, that came up at the commission meeting yesterday, so that might be a possibility. But Steve and Robert, are you guys gonna, are you guys now gonna sort of say, maybe we can have that real-time monitoring of cameras? Is cameras part of what you're considering as you talk?
He's coming up soon, right?
Okay, so it's your meeting, you guys. Arus, Robert, Catherine, let's go in that order.
Thanks, Miriam. I just wanted to also let you know our office is also working on figuring out this situation with ALPRs and Captain Gabaldan. We have reached out to PD. Sarah from our office is in charge of leading that project, and we are asking to share the location of the 15 ALPR cameras that PPRA has installed. We are communicating with Manuel Hernandez, Lieutenant Hernandez. If you can help us get that expedited answer, that'll be great. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see what we can do with that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry, you guys. So that's 15 that PPRA privately fundraised and put on private property. There was another 50 that LAPD was operating, right?
Yes,
You find out the status of those 50 that LAPD was operating. And I think those are the ones you said those contracts were supposed to run to the end of the year.
correct.
Okay. And then I guess now I'm going to say, Steve and Robert, please think about if LPR cameras are going to be productive for us and whether or not we can have real-time monitoring over at the stop-in station, right?
Yeah, and that's part of what we've been looking at. So I just can tell you from my personal, there was a flock across the street from me on the corner of Tellem and Lotman, and that camera has been gone for a while. And I've heard anecdotally from others that blocks have been removed from elsewhere.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, Miriam, if they're not monitored or there isn't sort of so cohesive plan with working together with an overall strategic security plan, I want to make sure that that the money is being spent wisely, because the cameras cost money, but if we're not monitoring them, then we're paying money and there's no payback,
Right.
Well, and Captain and SLO, that data though is available to go back and look at in the future, which is helpful. I understand.
6 months for flock.
Yeah, and who was describing it the other day said that they could go into this system and say, give me all black Toyota Corollas in the last 4 days that were in this area, and they'll spit them all out. So
Yes.
it sounds like it's a very useful tool for you guys.
For an investigative tool, it's very useful for follow-up.
So that brings me with my comment to what Steve and I have been talking about. We have two things that we need to be concerned about: the deterrent, and then the investigation, right? And
Correct.
making perception a reality. And we want the people to perceive that they're safe, and we want them to be safe. And we, through this exercise that Steve and I and Larry Vane has been on some of these calls as well, has been learning that it's a huge number, and we all greatly, and we haven't said it, we all greatly appreciate the city funding this for us. It's a lot of money, and it's much appreciated, as is all your time. And I know that goes without saying. But it also shows we as a community do not have the capacity to go out and raise, just even for the next 3 months, $1.5 million to put all those boots on the ground. It's just so it's not even a fantasy. It's not going to happen unless, I should say it's not going to happen, but someone might just write a check, but I don't know who that person is. So that leaves us with what can we do, and what's reasonable, and the answer to all that really is what helps you the most, as Steve said earlier, because we're your partners. We're helping. Whatever we do with our dollars is to help you. And I know I've asked this question on multiple calls, and we know how important boots on the ground are, but boots on the ground are the most expensive part of this discussion. And so is there a way through technology, and again, the MSUs, making sure the flocks are working, placing these MSUs in proper locations, signage, amplifying, if people are arrested, making sure that gets out into the community. And that's, I think, where, kind of where Steve and I are going in this conversation. And also to Steve's point earlier, is a ramping down, in whatever way that is, and whatever way is palatable, is also going to be helpful to the community, because it's not going from fully covered to no coverage. And so I really appreciate, Captain Gabaldon, that you get that, and you're going to advocate for that. So thank you. And so that's I really. So we don't know what flocks we have. So when we're talking to Allied and everybody, we didn't even know the answer to the question, and we still don't know the answer to the question. And so we can try to tailor more what we need. They've sent over some information. We have another call this afternoon with Allied to talk about cameras, and what they can do, and costs, and deployment. And so whatever feedback you can give us on that today, we can take that at meeting this afternoon, and continue our outreach.
Yeah, so like Brian and I said, as far as we know, the cameras are still in place. We still have access to them. One of the things for these cameras that you guys were able to do that other homeowners association couldn't do is you were able to circumvent the police commission. They just blankly let you guys, or let Flock put these cameras up on city property. That's not usually how it is. The Cheviot Hills, the Bel Air Homeowners Association, what they did is they made a donation to the police foundation specifically for these cameras. It has to go through commission, it has to get approved, and then those funds get dispersed from the police foundation back to the homeowners association. And then we met with them where we think the cameras will be most effective, and then they're put on city property. So that's kind of how the system is. They kind of circumvented all that and just put them up for you on city property. So if there's a way we could keep them, and like you said, it is very expensive, those cameras. If you could keep half of them, I think that would be a great tool for us, because you already have them in place. It doesn't make much sense to take them down, and then we have to go through the fundraising process, and through the police foundation, and through the police commission to put them right back up again. And now they're, you know, in working order. So maybe that's something you guys can work out with Flock, or come or get some kind of discounted rate since they're already up there, work out with the city. I think, you know, before this contract expires, that's something we definitely need to look at, and you guys need to look at too. And maybe that could be a cost-effective way to handle that, because these cameras are important. You know, there's only so many ingress and egress routes in Pacific Palisades. If we just had them there at those locations to capture those cameras, that would be great for us. Because, you know, let's face it, people are coming in to the area to commit crimes. They're not people that are living there that are committing crimes. Yeah, sometimes that does happen, but the majority of them are there to, you know, take advantage of, you know, people that, you know, that have, you know, property that they want to take. So, and that's what we did at the Cheviot Hills. That's what we did at Century City. That's what we did at Bel Air, is we met with them, and then we strategically put these cameras where we thought they'd be most effective in the ingress and egress routes. And we have been successful. Another thing too is this month, our drone program is here in West LA. It's out there flying right now. We made our first arrest this morning of a suspect that was vandalizing a Waymo car yesterday. We got information that he hangs out in a certain area. They sent the drone over at that time, and they spotted him and directed the black and white in, and they took him into custody for felony vandalism. So this is the first week. This is only the second day, and we did make an arrest. So if you see, you probably won't see it, but it's out there right now, and that's one of the things we're experimenting to, is responding up to the hills, and we'll see where it goes from there. But I'm excited about that. We're not getting any more officers. Like I said, you know, we're going to lose 350 this year. And for those of you that were at the meeting, we could be down to 8,000. So technology is going to be our friend when it comes to the follow-up and respond to these crimes in progress. So I know it's expensive, and it's a tough ask for you guys, you know, as much as stuff as you guys have been through. You know, all these people that lost their house and their property and stuff, to say, hey, you know, do you mind donating, you know, for cameras, because it's going to help the police. I know that's a tough ask, and I would never ask that, but the technology is great. So you can go to them, say, we got the 50 cameras, they're up. Let's find a way. Maybe the city can just, you know, decide, hey, you know, we'll buy those for you. Who knows? Maybe the money they save on the contract, they'll say, hey, we're going to defer that to the flock cameras. I think that would be great. Because West LA is 65 square miles. Without the technology, you know, we're just running from one radio call to the next. So
Okay.
that answers your
Has her
question.
hand up. Steve and Robert, did you guys know that so I learned yesterday that the West LA drone program is up, and I also learned that other divisions would like them, but they don't have them. But you can add that to your mix. We have a pilot. We have a pilot.
So it's a 1 month pilot program to see, you know, if it's feasible to launch the drone from here, and see how effective it's going to be. But I really think that we're going to get it here just because of the sheer size of West LA. I mean, we're the biggest division out of any LAPD division, 65 square miles. And then you throw in traffic, you know, and response time. I mean, this drone can get there, you know, 3 times as fast as a black and white going lights and sirens. So I'm really pushing for it. I know we have some great people from the Police Foundation that live here in the division that are really pushing for it. So the real-time crime center might be a little ways away, but I think the drone program is something that we're going to really push hard to get. And I think we got a good shot of getting that on a permanent basis.
Right.
Yeah, we were told it's been very effective in Beverly Hills.
Yes.
But just to give you guys a quick heads up, though, so we do have the drone, but for us in the Palisades, it launches here from the station. And it's a 3-mile radius, so it barely touches the Riviera area. It won't go beyond that unless something major happens, or if we're looking specifically for somebody, they can drive the drone out there a little closer, and then they can be in the Palisades. So we do have it, but it's for us in the Palisades, it just barely touches the Riviera area.
And that's
the distance.
And that's one of the things they're going to experiment too, is because it only can reach out 3 miles. They're gonna experiment with mobile kind of drone launch to these areas, and then they can cover it in 3 miles. So there might be multiple drones operating, kind of cutting the division in half. One up in the hills that they'll launch mobilely, and then the other one that they're going to launch from the station. They'll cover more of the surrounding area, the Century City area. So they're really going to be playing with it this month, and come up with an effective plan, and hopefully that'll get approved for us.
Excellent.
Okay. Man, I have to go to another meeting. I got time for one more question.
Yeah, it's going to be Catherine, and then Steve and Robert. If there's nothing else, we'll wrap it up. Catherine.
I don't have a question. I just want to say I'm the head of our HOA, and we do have a flock camera on Paseo Miramar. And I can show Steve and Robert how, because it's a closed system, but I have access to it. I'm happy to show it to you how it works. We had a hit and run with a car involved, and we did not recognize the car on the flock camera, but actually I contacted flock and they did something, and all of a sudden the car with the license plate showed up. So we had cameras near our house and I knew which car it was, but couldn't read the license plate. And with the flock camera, I could give the person whose car was hit the license plate. So it does work. We also on Paseo Miramar have a NASDAQ card 24/7 that 15 homeowners pay for. It is very expensive. And eventually we can't afford it anymore. So we would actually prefer to have some form of system with cameras everywhere that the neighborhoods could maybe, communicate with each other when they see something. And we raised our homeowners dues by $60 a person, and it's voluntary dues, $60 a person a year to afford the flock camera. So I'm just saying, if neighbors come together and want to pay for that, it's actually not that expensive for one flock camera. So, and Steve and Robert, I'm happy to show you how the system works.
Yeah, let's touch base offline.
Awesome.
Okay, everyone, if there are no outstanding comments or questions, I think we moved the needle today. I am glad that we all came together and discussed everything that's on the table and learned a few new things. Steve and Robert, thank you so much for all the discovery and unearthing that you've done and all the conversations. I think it will evolve, right? Our community response to security will evolve. But Captain Gabaldon, if you could suggest that there be a wind down versus a sudden cut, I think that buys us some valuable time. And then everybody mark your calendars for the 25th. We'll invite the broader community. We'll hear from CHP and maybe have some more information to share.
And Miriam, let me just jump in real quick before you wrap it up. And Officer Gabaldon, thank you so much. One thing that Robert and I did mention that might also help the wind down period is we potentially geofence the HOAs that are paying for private security to reduce the footprint that the private companies that we're contracting with to a smaller area, so that HOAs that are paying for their own security right now are not part of the footprint, and we can increase the presence that we're paying for in a smaller area, which might help a little bit in terms of the offset as this all progresses. And again, I want to echo what Robert said, and I said it earlier. Thank you so much to the LAPD and the city for doing what they have done to date to protect this community that we all love so much, and that we've all invested so much time into to build a foundation for rebuilding. But I'm going to hand it back to Miriam.
Thank you so much, Steve, for that great closing. Again, I thank you all for taking part in this conversation. Thanks for an hour of your time this morning. We will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Brian Espen, I lost him. I'll call him. I want to talk about turning this stop-in station into a stop-in station or into a substation. I think it'll be helpful for them if they have a landline and they have a computer. They won't go. I mean, obviously the trend is to pull back resources. So I want them to keep it. And if we can get a landline for them and give them a workstation, I think we're much more likely to hold on to LAPD.
Agreed. Totally.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for all the great work you're doing. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Miriam. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Goodbye, Jeff and Court. Glad you guys joined.